Beyond Nietzsche, Giambattista Vico on the truth about law. The topic of today's discussion is an arduous one. Let us move carefully. Nietzsche is known to have spoken against the resentment of the weak against the strong. Nietzsche's anthropology relies on a Machiavellian premise, a modern premise, which tells us that man is originally a beast. There is no fallen condition because man does not fall from any original blessing. Man is originally a beast. So if we want to understand the origin of civilization, of law itself, we should go back to the beastly state, the state of nature, as the moderns call it. So we have beast-like men who are fighting against each other. But at some point, inevitably, you have the stronger ones and the weaker ones. And the weaker ones are resentful because the stronger ones are winning. So what do the weak ones do? They make up a trick. This trick is the law. The trick is in their hands. They keep it for themselves. And they scare the strong into subjection, servitude to the law, to this trick, this mask of their own will, the will of the weak, of the resentful. This is not simply an indictment of Judaism, of the Hebrew religion. No. The problem is vaster. It touches upon the nature of law. Law as a mask of the will to power in its feeble condition. We have to overcome the law so that the strong can come forth, rise, and fully express the cosmic will to power. At this point, you could say law becomes an expression, a full expression, if you like, of the will to power. We are the law, the people. Laws are universals that are expressions of a truly emancipated will to power, where the will is also synonymous for the reason of modern man. So we have the liberation of reason, we have the enlightenment of Klarung, which involves the liberation of the will. The will is in charge of laws. We give ourselves laws, reflecting our will as truly emancipated people. We're no longer underneath the will of weak, feeble-minded, perverted, cunning manipulators who tricked us originally into bowing before the law, before God. God is dead, the law is dead. The old patriarchal society out of the window. That was a trick to keep us slaves. Us, the barbaric hordes that now will transcend their earthly, merely earthly condition in an apotheosis of the earthly. This, in a nutshell, is the lesson of modernity. And we can embellish it in various ways, and the point is that here we have and this is the end game, we have the setting up of a society of universals that are expressing our own will as emancipated incarnations of a cosmic will to power, of a vitality. The forces of evolution flow into us so that we can now express ourselves in terms of these laws, these principles that are applicable everywhere. They're universal. They're principles of universal collaboration. We all collaborate together, we all work together, and we do not stand at this point being under some laws that are given by nature or God and represented by a caste of priests, for example. This view is opposed by Giambattista Vico, who now represents a classical Platonic position that is fully compatible with the old patriarchy, represented also in turn by the Hebrew Bible. What does Vico have to say in the face of a Machiavellian revolution that then is carried on, blooms, as it were, or explodes with, or in the person of, in the works of Friedrich Nietzsche? First of all, Vico reminds us that our brutality, our condition as brutes, is a fallen condition. It presupposes an original blessing, right, in biblical terms. It presupposes, well, Eden presupposes a good beginning. And so, the importance of a return to it. Now, the question of a return involves very serious difficulties, but that's subsequent as an issue. What is crucial here is to understand that the brutal condition is not the end of the story as far as the beginnings go, representation of the beginnings. So, what does this mean for the sake of understanding the nature of law? Well, Vico is quite simple in explaining that if we go back to the condition of brutes fighting against each other, we see that it is not the weak who are establishing laws resentfully in an act of really violence, of cunning, evil, dishonesty, to cheat the many who are stronger. Almost the opposite is the case. What you have is barbaric hordes that are violent, not strong. Violent, and that tend to attack the weak. Consider the farmers, the hordes of barbarians coming over to the farmers, and, oh, they're scared. Where do the weak go? They go under the wings of the strong. The strong, who, relatively to the violent, of course, and the others, they're strong. They have moderated their passions. They're very pious. They're the pious. They're the fathers of society. They have been exposed to the bolt of lightning, thunder, and that has convinced them that there is a divine authority that is going to punish them if they do not distinguish themselves from beasts, if they do not put into check their passions. So now this first set of men who are strong because they're less violent become the protectors of the weak, the feeble. They become the laws. Now, as these feeble find protection under the strong against the violent, the strong, who represent the law, help the weak strengthen themselves. The weak are not simply violent, they are pious. They gain strength. As they gain strength, they seek understanding of the laws of their masters. Their masters ratify themselves into written form, but the first external laws are sacred, which is to say secret. With respect, they're divine. They're kept apart from those who are subject to the laws, until the people who are subject to the laws are strong enough to ask for clarification. They seek to partake in the interpretation of the laws. So compromises are made, and so laws are exposed a little more to those who are subject to them. And here we see that the law is not merely a way to control people. It is a way to save people from violence. But that is not what ultimately the law is about. The ultimate objective of law, the objective by nature, is discovered by those who are beneath the law, who are strengthened by the law, and who come to think about what is above the law. In pious terms, not in order to overturn the status quo, as we might say, to become themselves the masters, to dethrone the king, but to see the king through the laws, through the mirror of the laws, and to understand the king. Not in physical terms, that would be impious, but in the element of reflection. So the laws now become a mirror of this life of reflection that helps us understand the nature of the king, of the one who, of the will also, that is above the law. In this case, the will is not seen as an instrument of control of the people. It is unmasked, as it were. It is seen in its true nature as a medium for reflection. And so, for liberation from both conditions, the condition of the master and that of the slave. Slave, let us keep the word in scare quotes almost. In other words, understand the word in a general, very broad sense to indicate those who are underneath, subjected to the authority of the law. Serfs, people, the plebeians, as opposed to the patricians, the patres, the fathers. So, here we understand laws in, we could say, justly, in a poetic way. The laws are poetic fictions. They are fictions, but they're not reducible to fictions. They're not mere lies. The laws are forms, poetic forms, that allow us to rise into the element of reflection and therein transcend our fallen condition. We are above the law, but not against the law. We're not even trying to be masters here. We're transcending the condition of our masters as such, being now in communion with the ground of this whole theater that includes the strong, the weak, the violent, the laws, the whole corrupt, fallen world. We transcend it in the mirror of laws. This is a classical understanding of things that Vico articulates at length, explores for us, helps us understand. The whole modern movement obscures this reality. It attempts to establish a new world through the condemnation of the old. The old is represented in a bleak way, in a radically bleak way, that drives us away from it. So the representations that early modernity, early modern, the prophets of the modern world, right? The early prophets of the modern world hand us over. These representations of the old world convince us that our destiny is to work hard to establish a new world beyond the horrors of the old. And this project of building this new world leads to difficulties, of course. Now, there's a great irony to this, because what we have today is the result of this modern revolution, and what we have is a situation where we are stuck. We are compelling ourselves to abide by laws that are there to secure our condition as barbarians. Now, this setup is a complete subversion of a vision that is characteristic of certain strands of Christianity. Christianity, according to some pre-modern interpreters as well, was proposing us a synthesis of Epicurean and Stoic stances, whereby man was considered as, in his fallen condition, as an Epicurean. And this Epicurean man was supposed to be controlled, supposed to be put in check by a Stoic framework. Natural laws, eternal laws. These eternal laws, the Stoic foundation, was to secure order for Epicurean people. In other words, people who sought satisfaction, pleasure as the highest good. In the best case, Epicurean philosophers, in the worst, vile hedonists. So society was to be kept together by Stoic laws on a Stoic foundation. In the modern case, we have new Stoics, people who are manly, who have a strong will, right? And who understand themselves couched in an Epicurean foundation. The world is devoid of gods, devoid of providence. The world is not all about eternal laws. It's about the vortex. So we have an Epicurean foundation for the establishment of new Stoics. This is what we have even today, in principle. So the Stoics and New Stoics are, in effect, little islands unto themselves. They are the individuals who are successful, and then we have the less successful ones who are still bound to the Epicurean, or rather hedonistic, grounding. And the guides are consolidating in a machine, a set of mechanisms that are to order this foundation, the hedonistic chaos, the vortex. We order the vortex, this chaos, and so we have chaos management from the top, and the rest of the people, well, tough luck. And we have them, they are still tied to this chaos. And so this is the way we conceive politics, right? Chaos management. All of this goes back to these ideas, to the modern revolution, which in turn incarnates a revolt against a classical position represented by Giambattista Vico.